deep stretching. We'll go for about 30 minutes today, plus or minus. And let's just see how far we get. We'll start from our feet, work our way up. And the reason why we start from our feet is because most of the trouble that most people get into with mobility and flexibility, most of the time, is it's usually the lower body. Tight toes, tight feet, tight ankles, tight knees, tight everything. And it just follows its way up the chain. Sometimes you have a stiff neck, and that's because it's a side effect of having a stiff foot. It's just all the compensations that go up the spine until it can balance itself out. So without getting too technical and down too many rabbit holes, we'll begin. A couple of things today. Number one, make sure to take your time. Go easy. Pay attention to your breathing. Your breathing should just be soft, easy, gentle, no grunting, no gasping, no pauses in your breathing. It should just be smooth, even, fluid breathing. And at least one thing to consider is most of your flexibility woes are in your brain, not necessarily mental. It's not like you are mentally causing yourself. It's not psychosomatic, but it's programming. It's called homeostasis. Your brain tries to just keep you where you are. That's just for the sake of efficiency. So your brain keeps you where you are, so it doesn't have to expend too much energy learning a whole bunch of new different things. So on the good side, the good news is you don't have to overthink and remember and relearn things. But the bad news is when you try to take in new stuff, your body resists. That's why it's hard sometimes to change your diet. It's hard to pick up exercise habits. It's hard to become flexible. If you don't tell your brain it's normal to be in butterfly pose, your brain will never interpret that and you will never get into butterfly pose, no matter what. So you have to go slow, steady, gradual. Let the brain know that butterfly pose is safe for us. Let the brain know that different positions and different stretches are safe. And eventually the brain will accept that. And suddenly, almost miraculously, you have newfound mobility and flexibility. The exception to that is if there's a medical or clinical reason, or you're built a certain way. You know, bones are shaped differently. You might be bone on bone, and you'll never, no matter what, ever be able to touch your toes, or you may never, ever be able to get into a wide butterfly. It could just be the way you're built. So, with that in mind, be kind to yourself. Let's breathe, let's stretch, and let's see how we feel in about 30 minutes. So first things first, in this case, this is my left foot. It's sitting up tall. My left hand is going to drape over my left toes and pull my left toes towards my left shin. So a couple different things are happening. Stretching the toes. So I'm extending my toes, stretching the bottom of my feet, and stretching the calf muscle here. The arm is pretty active, the foot is pretty active. We want to pay attention to our breathing, want to pay attention to sensations. On a scale from 0 to 10, 10 being very, very, very intense, 0 feeling nothing, we want to hover around a 2 or a 3. So if you're pulling on your toes, you're pulling on your foot, and you don't really feel too much, pull just a little harder. Your arm is controlling it. Well, your brain is controlling your arm. Your arm is controlling the stretch. So you are in control. You can release the stretch if you need to, or you can intensify the stretch if you need to. We're going to hold here for a few more seconds. Now we have a choice. Stay here. If this is feeling real tight and you're just not getting anywhere, stay here. If you want to take it to the next level, we straighten the leg. And we just continue pulling this way. Straightening the leg gets into a different set of muscles for the calves. Try to be as upright as possible. If your arm's getting tired, you can assist with the other arm if you like. If you have a strap or a rope or a towel, you can wrap it around the ball of your foot and use that for leverage. Now we may or may not be affecting the hamstrings a little bit, but really the goal is the calves. So let's hang in here for a couple more seconds. Good. And now we'll switch sides. In this case, my right knee is bent. Right hand drapes over the right toes. Pull the right toes back. I really should say extend the right toes toward the right shin. So you're getting a stretch on your toes, the sole of your foot, and the back of your shin. The Achilles tendon, and really a muscle, it's called the soleus. That's on the back of the shin here. Just breathe. Check in with your breathing. Check in with the intensity. If you need to make it more intense, please do. Now, if you can, straighten your leg or not. Keep your leg bent. It's whatever you can tolerate, or it's just really whatever you can tolerate, and whatever is not going to disrupt your breath is really it. Too many people try to jump to the next step. Some people following along probably should not be here. I can't see, so I can't coach, but you should know. If this is unbearable, if the stretch came out, so for example, I've got I'm not sure what this angle is here, but whatever this angle is when my knee is bent, that angle stays when I straighten my leg. If my angle of the ankle changes, I'm going too far, and I can't pull my toes back, so I got to bend the knee. Good. Gently come out of that, nice and easy. I'm going to turn sideways, and here we're going to try to stretch the hamstrings a little bit. Now, if possible, both legs straight. And after stretching the calves, should be able to straighten your legs or make them a little straighter. If you can't straighten your legs, go back and do those calf stretches again, because that's just indicative of having tight posterior chain. There's no point in trying to force it. If you are able to sit up, if you are able to extend your legs, see if you can lean forward a little bit. And just like we did a second ago, maybe you can drape your hands over your toes, both hands, both sets of toes, and pull your toes back. Pull your toes towards your shins, but you're lifting your chest. Your knees are pressing towards the ground because you're contracting your quadriceps. Maybe you're contracting the muscles in the front of your thighs, they're called the anterior tibialis. You're trying to get your leg as flat on the ground as possible. Just breathe and hold. If you're still stretching your calves, that's fine. Just hang in there. Keep stretching your calves. Eventually the legs will straighten more, and then you can get into the hamstrings more. If you're getting into your hamstrings, you just keep trying to pull your belly button closer and closer to your thighs. keep lifting your chest up. At some point the spine will flex. You can't help that. But you want to start as upright as possible, lifting your chest as high as possible. Hang in there with me for 3, 2, 1. And gently come out of that. Now the next stretch is going to look a little weird, but it's going to help us get into a stronger butterfly position. Now if possible, sit up, bend your knees, feet flat on the ground, and your knees are kind of wide. You're creating a space in which you will be able to kind of fall through your leg bones here. Okay, if you're too close together, you're not going to go that far. If you're kind of wide, you should be able to fit between your thighs. Is kind of like the goal. Okay? So we inhale, sit up tall. Lift your chest. Now what's important here is that you're leading with your chest. Leading with your tummy, leading with your chest. Don't lead with your eyebrows or your forehead or your skull. Lift your chest up and just see how far you can tip forward between your leg bones here. You almost kind of look like a spider. And don't worry, if you don't go very far, that's fine. Don't worry about that. Concentrate more on keeping the chest up, hinging forward between your thigh bones. Now you see I have my arms kind of resting on my shins. This is helping to pull me down a little bit. I'm not using my arms to pull, but it helps to kind of stabilize, and I can gently nudge myself a little further down. If you haven't moved an inch, that's okay. If you're feeling a little bit of stretch on your inner thighs, that's good. We're trying to get into the inner thighs. You might feel your low back a little bit. One more inhale here. Gently come up. And now we try butterfly. Soles of the feet come together. Hold on to your ankle bones. And just let your knees flop out to the side. And just notice, is butterfly easier now? It's okay if you said the answer is no. That's fine. Because over time, with consistency, you'll retrain your nervous system, and all of a sudden, you'll have flexibility and mobility. Now from this butterfly position, let's start to flap the butterfly wings to the best of our ability. It's whatever you can muster. Try to pull your knees down, about as far down as possible, without hurting yourself. But we're using the opposing muscles to help stretch the inner thigh muscles. So the muscles that abduct are helping to stretch the muscles that adduct. We do about 20 repetitions here. It's really just as many repetitions until you feel the benefit of the stretch or until you get diminishing returns. At some point, your knees are just going to stop moving toward the ground, and that's okay. Good. Nice and easy. Let's lie on our backs, please. This is eye of the needle. Eye of the needle technically is supposed to stretch the outside hip, but it can also stretch the low back. But we've got to go through phases. We've got to make sure that we can even tolerate the position first. So phase 1, we have the right foot on the ground, right knee is bent, left ankle crosses the right thigh. If you lift up your head, you might see a triangle. It might look like the number 4. Just depends on how your brain works. Phase 1 is just see if you can tolerate this position. Make sure that your left knee is completely fine. Make sure that your left ankle is fine. If this is too intense, you just keep scooching your right foot away. That'll take the pressure off. If it's just right, hold and breathe. If you want to take it a little deeper, take your right foot off the ground. So you notice both knees start moving towards your chest now. Which is fine. But make sure, always concentrate on your left knee. And make sure that left knee and that left ankle are fine. And pay attention to your left outside hip. The final phase is to interlace your fingers under your right thigh. And you gently bring both knees towards your chest. And breathe. You're trying to resist your left knee away from your chest. Even though the right knee is pulling both knees towards your chest, resist a little bit with your left knee. And that resistance is where you're going to start to feel a stretch on the outside of your left hip. And just breathe. Breathe normally. Constantly scanning, make sure your left knee is okay. And then we gently unwind. I always recommend going through all the steps on both sides. You may find one side is real loose, easy, and free, but then the other side is locked tight. So pay attention to that and go step by step. Phase 1. I'm feeling pretty good in phase 1, so I'll go to phase 2. I'm feeling pretty good in phase 2, so I'll go to phase 3. And then I'm just working on moving my right knee away from my body as I pull on my left knee. And it's trying to bring both knees toward the body, but you resist with the right knee. And just double checking, making sure that the right knee feels okay, the right ankle feels okay. Everything should feel okay. A little bit of resistance, a little bit of tension, but not so much that it's overwhelming. One more inhale here. Exhale, gently unwind. Both feet down. Let's roll over to our sides and come up to a seated position. Now the quadriceps and the hip flexors, they're hard to get to. They really are. There aren't a whole lot of stretches we can do to really get into the quads. Mostly because most people can't tolerate the compression on their knees. It's not anyone's fault. People just have different things going on with their knees, etc. The stretch that I find most effective for the quadriceps is a kneeling stretch. And I'll show it to you now. If it's possible, come to a kneeling position. You might need to put padding under your knee. In this case, my right knee is on the ground. So you might need to put some padding under your right knee. You might have to skip this stretch altogether, and that's okay too. But if possible, the right knee is down. You're lifting your torso up. You're reaching your skull up, and you're trying to tuck your pelvis under you. And the more pelvic tilting you put on, the more you should feel some resistance on your quadricep. Just keep doing that. And you see, I'm physically taking my hands, my fingers kind of on my glutes, my thumbs are on my hip bone, and I'm physically turning my pelvis under. And I can feel the resistance all the way up and down the front of the right leg. You just keep getting taller, 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 taller. Now, if you've gotten pretty good mobility here, you can try scooching your front foot forward a little bit and shifting forward a little bit. You have to be careful how it affects your knee. And you have to be careful that your butt isn't lifting behind you. It's like you're trying to push your belly button forward. But you don't have to do this. Pay attention to whatever you can tolerate. Stick with that and enjoy. You cannot force adaptation. The exception to that is building your tolerance to carbon dioxide. But we're not trying to do that right now. Now we're just trying to stretch the quadricep. We switch sides. Be mindful of your knee. This is your left knee on the ground. As upright as humanly possible. Maybe you hook your hands around the bony part of your pelvis and you turn your pelvis. You're trying to pull on the muscle that attaches more or less to your knee and attaches to your hip. Steady, steady breathing. If you're good here, stay here. Otherwise, scoot your foot forward a little bit and shift forward. You're trying to push your belly button forward. Don't let your belly button point to the ground. That's when you're behind. You go to that anterior tilt. If anything, you're trying to keep a posterior tilt. Keep pushing your belly button forward. Stay as upright as possible. Breathe. Nice and easy, calm, steady. Gently come out of that. As gracefully as possible, brace yourself and come to a standing position. But you stand any way humanly possible. And just make sure everything's okay. Now, we're going to do a bonus stretch for the hamstrings because everyone needs it. Everyone, including me. Everyone could always use a little bit extra hamstring, glute, and low back stretch. This is called the walking rearward shift. From this position, I'll turn sideways that you can see. We do a rearward shift. Bend your knees slightly, hands to your thighs. Inhale, lift your chest. As you exhale, push your behind straight back. So right away, we get into the rearward shift, and right away, you should feel some tension in your hamstrings, maybe in your glutes, and maybe in your low back. Now we try to alternate, straightening and bending our legs. Completely straight, slightly bent. Completely straight, slightly bent. And you're trying to walk backwards. You want your heels to get heavier and heavier. And as your heels are getting heavier and heavier, you may, or may not, be able to start to slide down your shins, maybe towards your ankles, maybe not, maybe to your feet, maybe to the floor. It's whatever you can muster. But you have to make sure your legs go completely straight, slightly bent, completely straight, slightly bent. And then work your way back up. Find the weight in the heels. Work your way back up. Good. Nice. For the hamstring stretch in particular, all your hamstring stretches, make sure you keep your legs as straight as possible. As soon as you bend the leg, you're taking the stretch out. You take the stretch out, you rob yourself of mobility and flexibility. It may not be super awesome. It might be frustrating because it feels like you're getting nowhere. But that's just your brain and your muscles have got to catch up with each other. And eventually they will. And all of a sudden, you're going to have amazing flexibility and mobility. Now, next couple stretches, pretty much for the entire side of the body. If possible, You're going to take the right leg and cross over the left leg. So the right ankle crosses over the left ankle, if that's possible. If it's impossible, if there are balance issues, do not cross your ankles. Do not. If you can, right ankle crosses left ankle. If you can, right arm comes up. Now from this position, imagine in your left hand that you've got a real heavy suitcase. That suitcase is pulling you down, pulling your left side down. Breathe. Both arms as straight as possible. And just notice, even if your feet are apart, even if your right arm is down by the side, you're still going to feel some stretch coming up the right side of the body. I will always get some kind of a pop or a crack in this position. Pops and cracks are okay as long as they don't hurt. Most of the time it's just displaced gas in our synovial joints. Most of the time. Our bones don't indiscriminately pop in and out of place. Subluxations and stuff like that. It's stuff that happens over time, unless it's severe acute trauma. If you fall out of a tree and land on a cinder block, yeah, your bones are going to pop out of place, probably. But just doing simple stretches, they're probably not going to pop out of place. Left ankle crosses right, if possible. Left arm comes up, if possible. Imaginary heavy suitcase in the right hand. Inhale, and as you exhale, let that heavy suitcase pull you down. Breathe. And just notice the difference from left side to right side. In my case, I feel almost nothing when I stretch my left side, because it's my right side that's really congested. It's almost hypertonic compared to my left side. So this, to me, on my left side, I don't spend too much time here. I'll go back and do my right side a second time. Not today, but in my personal stretching routine. One more inhale. Exhale, gently come out. Nice and easy. Stand with your feet apart, please. Hip width apart. Notice what there is to notice. Notice if you feel balance from left to right, front and back. Notice if there's an increased warmth or increased circulation of blood. I hope you feel amazing after those deep stretches. I hope you will go forth and be awesome. If I don't see you sooner, I will see you later. Let me know what you thought of the stretches in the comments. I'll see you soon. Thanks.